Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and today's edition for Tuesday, the 22nd of August, comes to you from London. And we start, as always, by looking at the dollar index. Dollar has actually just recovered a little bit this morning, but we still are bearish below the cloud here on the short-term time horizon. So, still looking a little bit bearish, but just not breaking down through this long-term support level, which we see here on the 1% point figure chart. So, dollar just a little bit in the doldrums, and if we look at the euro, it's selling off a little bit. Still bullish above the cloud short term, and of course medium and long term looking more and more bullish as well. But so euro is holding its strength. Japanese yen is weakening a little bit. We see a dollar strength just creeping in here, as we see on the dollar index. So, but we are still bearish below the cloud on the yen. So yen still looking strong, medium, long term. Sterling taking a dive this morning, 128.31 against the dollar. So we're hitting new lows there. So sterling looking bearish, and we're just activating this downside target of 125.40. 124.30 is already activated, so anywhere between 2 and 3% downside for sterling. Looking at the euro, sterling is actually making new multi-year lows now, so we are just seeing the lowest level since 2010. So sterling against the euro is falling away, so looking bearish there as well. And against the Swiss franc, we're looking bearish. And against the Australian dollar, 162.32, we're just falling into these low 160s. Not quite yet activated this downside target of 156, which would be a further 3.9% downside. The S&P 500 index was fairly flat yesterday, just pausing for breath. We're still bullish in the medium and long term, but the short term chart is quite bearish with a 3% downside. So we are just seeing that sell off, and we're seeing the Nasdaq hitting new lows as well. So we've got a downside target here of 4.5% and 2%. So we are just seeing short-term sell-off. The Dow actually was up slightly last night, but we are still bearish below the cloud here as well. And the Russell 2000 continues to look worrying as we're through the cloud here on the medium-term chart. So the broader US market of small caps 2000 stocks is looking worrying. The S&P future is up very slightly this morning. The Nasdaq E-mini is up over 1/3%, so it does suggest that we will see the US market open higher today. FTSE 100 is up about 2/3% this morning, but still looking bearish in the short term, and the DAX is just recovering a little bit as well, and the 250 FTSE is just recovering through the cloud on the short-term chart. But the market's just still looking very mixed, waiting for a direction from the US. The Nikkei is hitting the floor here. Japanese yen being stronger is affecting Japanese corporate earnings, which is pushing the Japanese market lower. The Shanghai Composite is looking stronger, and the Hang Seng Index also looking quite good there. So we are just seeing recovery in the Chinese market, and the Indian market, the Sensex, is starting its recovery, looking like the low we put in last week. We're just holding that at the moment. We are still bearish below the cloud here, of course, but the medium and long-term chart's still looking great. The Aussie market's still looking very mixed until we break out of this range, 5.758. It's very hard to call, and Brent crude oil is actually just holding on at the moment, so it's looking a bit better since Friday's jump, and so we are still bullish on the short term. And WTI, we are also seeing bullishness there. US natgas is it jumped yesterday, so we're back into the high 290s. We're bullish in the short term, and we have got this new upside target of 6.5%, $3.15, but we haven't yet activated that. We need to move higher than yesterday's high to do that. So a move above, say, 298 would activate that 3.15. Copper looking very strong still on all three time frames. And we have got targets, a short-term target of 5% and the medium-term chart 5% as well. So copper could go higher still. Looking at the soft commodities, sugar is down again this morning, still bearish below the cloud. So sugar looking weak. Wheat is up quite strongly, and we're seeing, but it is still bearish on all three time frames. And soybeans also just coming through the cloud, looking a bit more bullish in the short term. And corn futures still looking bearish all around. Gold's a big one, of course. We've been waiting for this break. We just hit the $1,300 level on Friday, and we're coming back into Still bullish just above the cloud here, but the prices are just coming below. So this 290 level is becoming quite significant. We haven't activated this downside target of 1258, so at the moment gold is looking at quite okay. We still have this upside target of $13.67, so we are seeing the 6% upside target still there and activated. So if we move below this sort of 1283 level, that would be a little bit worrying, and of course we are quite close to that this morning. Looking at the cloud, that's the level we see here. 1280 is probably the level we want to really worry about at the moment. So as long as gold stays above 280, the short-term bullish trend will be intact. A lot of uncertainty around this $1,300 level. That's the thing that's really just weighing over us. And if we look at silver, much the same picture here, although more bearish on the medium and long-term charts. And again, we haven't activated this downside target, and we've got an upside target of 7.6% that's activated. Quick look at palladium, just another precious metal that is actually making multi-year highs, since highest level since 2001. That's on catalytic converter demand and a shortage of the metal at the moment. So we are just seeing one precious metal that's leading the way, and maybe that will have an impact on the others. So quite interesting there. US Treasury yields are sitting at 2.2%, so the sentiment on US interest rates is fairly unmoved. We are still bearish below the cloud on the medium and short-term charts. Even though we've got an upside target of 228, we've got quite a lot of downside targets into the low 2% area. Apple, looking at tech stocks, Apple just held its own yesterday, but it is starting to wander through the cloud, looking a little bit more worrying. Google, we've been a bit worried about actually hitting new lows again yesterday, so that's just significant that Google is selling off, and we've got downside potential here of about 5%. Amazon also just looking a little bit lower, but not making new lows like Google, so looking a little bit better, but downside targets of between 4 and 6%. Facebook, the one standout, is actually up. Yesterday when the market was down, not massively up, but still showing some resilience. We are just short-term bearish here, of course, but we've got a lot of upside targets, especially on these long-term charts. So further to go for Facebook in the medium to long term. And Microsoft also just pulling back again yesterday, just putting it into a bit more of a bearish position, but the medium and long-term charts looking great. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.